Hello. So my guest today is an extra special one. So obviously every single guest that I have on Midlife Conversation is special and dear to my heart, but I have to admit that I have a somewhat closer affinity to today's guest because it's my husband. It is Nick Feeney. Hi, Nick.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm really good.
I haven't
I'm really
seen you
good.
for minutes.
Now, the reason I wanted to get Nick on Midlife Conversations today is because we wanted to discuss this whole issue of midlife self-care because it's something that you constantly see doing the rounds on social media. Everyone's constantly talking about, whether they are living their best life. We know that people only put their best selves forward onto Instagram, and it is not necessarily real, but it can put a whole lot of pressure on anybody, but I think particularly in midlife, because we feel like we're either not doing it properly, or we need to go all in, and that's it. I'm going to give up smoking, give up drinking. I'm going to exercise for 4 hours a day, every day down the gym, and then I'm going to be a definition of a healthy midlife person. And what I love about what you do, Nick, is you blast those self-care myths out of the water. And I know this because I live with you, and I know that you do what you tell other people to do. So today I wanted to talk to you as in your capacity as a coach, and how you help other people in midlife just put down all these preconceived ideas about what self-care is. So that's your little introduction. I want you to tell me now what your definition of self-care is. How would you explain it?
Okay. Well, I would say that real self-care isn't a thing that you do. It's who you are. And what I mean is like, lots of people go, I need to look after myself. I'm going to go to a spa. I'm going to have a massage. I'm going to have these. And while these things are all lovely, trust me, they're lovely, right? That's like a plaster. You have to really start looking inwards, listening to your body, understanding where you are. And one of the things you touched on about all these things out there on social media, even what I'm putting out on
Mhm.
social media, it will piss some people off. It will be, oh, it's all right for you. You're clearly, there'd be lots of preconceived ideas as to, why I'm in good shape, how my health is, what my routines are, and everything. And on the flip side of that, with all the algorithms, obviously we start going, I'm interested in self-care and wellness, and that you get bombarded with loads of different versions of what self-care is. And if you actually did everything that you're supposed to do, I don't think you'll have time for anything else, which is insane. And the whole thing around self-care, and this is something that we touched on earlier in our conversations, because we constantly talk about looking after ourselves, don't we? It's certainly important in who we are, but that's where it has to start. You have to genuinely believe that you are worth looking after yourself, that actually your self-care is a priority. It's more important than anything else. And I know that certain people listening to this go, well, no, my children are number one, or my husband's number one, right? People I coach have said these things to me. But you cannot be a great mum. You cannot be a great dad if you do not look after yourself first. And the analogy I use is, so many people panic when they run out the house. They go, damn it, I haven't charged my phone up. It won't make the day. Yet they never stop to think, did you charge yourself up? Are you going to make the day? And also understanding what does charge you up. And it's not this. This is a nice thing to have, and I love this, and I drink it all the time. But if you are relying on this to get you through the day, then that's not great. And that's what I think self-care
Mm.
is. It is such an inside job, but you have to believe that you're worth it too.
Well, for me, I have a vested interest in this conversation because prioritizing self-care is something that I wax and wane with. I have moments where I'm really good with it, and then I have moments where I slip back into my old grooves and old patterns of behavior, and I start getting really distracted. I get too into work. I think, oh, I'll find time. I'll do it later, and I have to mentally force myself to get back on track. It's well known. I've had a really challenging year this year because at the start of the year, I had to finally kind of hold my hands up and go, right, I'm so unwell. I cannot carry on the way that I'm going. And for me, it was learning that prioritizing my health and my self-care wasn't a selfish thing. It wasn't a giving up thing. Although I did have to give up certain things, lots of work, for example. It was that realization that actually, if I'm not well, I actually can't do any of these other things. And for me, it's been a 6-month experience of building layer upon layer upon layer, slowly, and implementing daily routines that I would give myself a time limit to. And even when I felt like, oh, I think I can do more today, forcing myself not to, because I know what I'm like. I either go 100 miles an hour or not. And that's how I am. And what's been so interesting is obviously I have been doing these things and building layer upon layer. And then eventually I'm in a really good place now and I'm really strong. Is that part of it came about organically through me, but obviously a lot of it came through osmosis by observing you, because that's how you live your life. And while sometimes as a wife, it can be really irritating watching someone just always doing the right thing all the time when you're busy
We
running
know
around.
that's not true. I don't always do the right thing. I am constantly mucking up on many things.
No, but yes, that is a fact. That is a whole other episode. That's a whole other episode.
It's me.
Yeah, no, you're right. Of course, yeah, you do muck up royally. But we could, like I say, it's a whole other episode. But I mean, in terms of your health and your well-being, for you, there is nothing gets in the way of it. Nothing. It's even if you're not in the mood, even if you're tired, you will still do your 6 minutes in the morning and your 4 minutes in the evening. Or I've lost track of what your time scale is now. But your base level, and this is what I wanted to get to today, in terms of helping people understand how they can improve their self-care by just looking at their base level, is your base level is every morning. It is press-ups and squats, and then you end the day with either a plank or a core hold. Now you might think, okay, that's really dull, that's just to do with fitness. Actually, it's not. It's to do with discipline. It's to do with making yourself keep a promise that you have made to yourself. The biggest barrier that we all have in our sense of achievement, our well-being, whether it's career, relationship, health, whatever it is that we consistently break our promises to ourselves. And I have to say that's something you're really, really good at, is you don't break promises to yourself. So talk people through this mindset that you have of keeping the promise you've made to yourself to stick to your base level every day, even if you don't feel like it, and what this means about meeting yourself where you are in terms of your base level.
Well, okay, let me answer that in a couple of bits then, because for anyone that's listening to this that actually follows me on Instagram and on Facebook, they'll see that every Monday I put a post out and I talk about what is your weekly promise to yourself. You know, we're really, really good at keeping promises to other people, to our children, but we are terrible at keeping promises to ourselves. Now, when you make a promise to yourself and you don't keep it, that little promise, i.e., I'm not going to have chocolate this week, 2 days in, I'm having chocolate, that in itself isn't anything that's going to derail you. It's no biggie. So what? Right? But the thing is, you will then keep making little promises to yourself, as we have done throughout our lives. And then we keep making excuses as to why we don't keep them. It's all right. I went to the gym. I deserve it. Blah, 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 all this. But the impact of not keeping promises to ourselves actually really impacts our confidence and our low self-esteem. Because like a paper cut, those compounded over time actually start you questioning, I'm not good enough. Actually, I can't do that. I won't be able to do that. Right? And the evidence is because you can't keep a promise to yourself. You always let yourself down. Even that word, always, I always let myself down. So by changing that, the dialogue you have in your head, but also the ability to keep a promise, is I encourage people every week to make a tiny, tiny promise to themselves. So actually, when they keep that promise, they feel super proud, but also more importantly, it's a promise in the right direction that's going to help their life, going to help their week, it's going to help them feel good about themselves. And again, it works the other way. You keep doing that, you keep those promises to yourself, right? Like 1,000 paper cuts, they compound, but this is the positive side of it. And then all of a sudden you start believing that you can, right? And then you start seeing how great you are and how worthwhile you are. And it's something so small, but again, zoomed out, has such a big impact. So that's the first thing. The second thing is when we realize that we need to take our self-care a bit more importantly, we go from zero to hero. We go, I need to do more. I need to look after myself. I want to shift a bit of weight, whatever your reason for self-care. And then you go from doing nothing to absolutely way too much. And the trouble is, you make that decision when you are highly motivated. And motivation is great to get you started, but it will not keep you going. And then the reality is, because you've gone in too much, and by the way, we have all done it. Everyone, think of New Year's Eve, right? You've absolutely had an amazing December. You've done everything, drunk everything, ate everything that you wanted to throughout December. You start feeling a bit bad about yourself and all that, and you make these wonderful promises, and this is going to be the year. And statistically, on average, 80% of you will not get through January, because that motivation that started completely waned. So, and that goes back because you're looking for an outcome. You don't truly believe as well, because again, it goes back to these little promises that you're not keeping to yourself. And there you go. Then you've just evidenced once again that you're not good enough. You can't do the things that you promise that you do. So that's the issue around all these things. Now, my way of doing it, and these are the things that I coach all my clients on, because no matter where they are, we start with their self-care, and I meet them where they are, and I look at their baseline. So what do you do daily? All right, and be honest. Don't tell me what you do now and then. What do you do daily? And we look at that, and I said, okay, right. If I was to raise that by 1%, right? And I give them some ideas of what they can do with that 1%. And I said, but you have to stick to it. So I'll give you a couple of examples. A couple of clients, they were really quite unhealthy. One in particular, he was commuting 5 hours a day. So 2 and a bit hours in, 2 and a bit hours back. But also with that, he was out 3 to 4 nights, socializing, drinking, with work, taking clients out, that sort of thing. But he's at breaking point. We talk about these paper cuts. He knows that if he carries on that trajectory, life is not going to be great. And he was aware that also he didn't have in his head time to go from hero to zero. So he was like completely lost, didn't know what to do. So I said to him, have you got 90 seconds? Now he looked at me like I'm some sort of idiot. All right. Firstly, A, of course I got 90 seconds, and B, what the hell am I going to do in 90 seconds that's going to help me? I said, right, I said, I want you to do 90 seconds. And bearing in mind, he was not fit. Okay, so we were starting from not a great level. I said, I want you to do 90 seconds of jumping jacks. Okay. And I want you to give it 70% effort level or above. Now, you have to be honest with yourself because you know what 70% is. And also appreciate that 70% one day will not be 70% the next day. And so the two rules are you give 70%, okay? And at the end of 90 seconds, you stop. Because even if you feel I can do a bit more, I don't want you to do any more. Can you do that for me? And can you do that for 30 days? It's like, of course I can. So we got a deal and they message me every day showing me that they're doing it or that they've done it and everything like that. And I keep them accountable, chase them up if I haven't had a message, that sort of thing. At the end of 30 days, now I know what's coming. This was a massive surprise to them, okay? But at the end of 30 days, I said, hey, tell me, how are you feeling? All right. They got emotional. They said, I cannot believe the difference 90 seconds has made on my life. I've stuck to it every day. I haven't missed a day, even when I was hungover, even when I didn't want to do it, I did it. All right. And he didn't use this word, but the ripple effect of this new positive behavior and this slight change of trajectory. He started drinking less when he went out for those work nights. He started leaving earlier because he wanted to feel good when he did his 90 seconds in the morning. He started making better decisions around what went in his mouth when he ate. 8 months later, he did his first half Ironman. And that's a man that doesn't have time for health. Totally changed his life. And all I did was help him raise his base level. Now, for transparency, there was more coaching after that. And there's never just one thing. You know, I'm not fit and healthy because I've raised my base level around the exercise that I do each day. You know, I'm fit and healthy because of all the other things I do. But what I do with the people that I work with, I get them to start somewhere. Mm. And for this guy and for a couple of other people as well, 90 seconds was the starting point. And honestly,
I love it. I love that story. And because it's so simple. And I know it's something that you've replicated many times with the people that you've worked with. And to give, I suppose, a slightly more female side to that is, you know, one of the things that I talk about when I talk to the women that I either do talks with or talks to, talks at, is trying to think. So I'm speaking either on a stage or via Zoom, so it's kind of with, but mostly at. Is this the whole discussion around what I call the wobbly stool method, and it's something that I just made up myself in terms of helping me. You call it raising your base level. I just because I'm a very visual person, I imagine that my wellness is all in my brain, because for me, every single thing we do starts with how we think of it. Everything we do starts with what our attitude is towards something, how our emotions are towards something. So it's all in the brain. And for me, because I'm a very visual person, I imagine a 3-legged stool. And for me, the 3 legs of that stool are sleep, nutrition, and movement. Now, and then on the top of that little stool, and I can visualize it really clearly. It's a wooden stool, and my brain is sitting on top of it, just kind of pink and blobby, sitting on top of that stool. And what that means is, when my brain is flat and the 3 legs are solid, my brain is cool. It's feeling chilled and it's functioning as it should do. But if one of those stools, the legs goes a bit wobbly, if I don't get enough sleep, if I know I've been eating rubbish, mainly for me, it's too much sugar or what have you. And I'm not moved. Now, for me, I'm I'm not as fit as you are. I've been looking after myself and I've always been fit, but I'm not the level that you are. So for me, movement doesn't necessarily have to mean the gym. It can mean doing stretching, yoga, walking the dog, gardening, love gardening. It can be any kind of movement, anything that gets my heart pumping a little bit. If any of those legs haven't been looked after and the stool is wobbly, I mean, that sounds really gross. My brain falls out. I don't mean it like that. What I mean is, it's not sitting right. And 9 times out of 10, if anyone watching or listening to this, if you're not feeling quite right in yourself, it's because one of those 3 pillars isn't quite right. And it all comes back to, now you can ask yourself, right, what do I do about it? And it comes to exactly what Nick said. You meet yourself where you are. And raising your base level could be, and this is my interpretation of it, I'm going to be more consistent about making sure I switch the telly off and go to bed at a decent time. My nighttime routine is going to be better so that I have a little bit of time in between, switching off Netflix and not getting drawn into next episode starts in 3 seconds. And that's my downfall. I'm bad at that. Reading a book in bed instead of sitting on my phone and then trying to turn the light out at a reasonable time. Setting the alarm so that you have time to get up in the morning and do a bit of movement, and then just keep an eye on what you eat. For me, that's my base level, and it's achievable because I haven't actually made huge changes, and all those things are free. And I think that, again, is something I'd be interested to get your take on. People think that, yes, you have to pay for someone's experience if they're going to guide you through a process. But really, most of these things, once you have a system in place, they last forever because it's about forming good habits. It's not necessarily about buying a new product. Do you know what I mean?
I absolutely agree with everything that you said there, and again, like I mentioned earlier, it's not the one thing. There are many, many layers, and you have to raise your base level in each of those layers. Now, whilst it's such a simple thing to do, people still struggle, right? Even going back to one of the people that I said do 90 seconds, I had to be on him to do 90 seconds. 90 seconds, right? And the reason being, because he didn't believe that 90 seconds was going to make a difference. So he's like, what's it matter? Right? So it's not always about having the systems and even I just changed that habit for that habit. It's actually who you believe yourself to be. And it goes back to that worth again. And this is why, with 2 things, if I said to everyone listening to this, do 90 seconds of jumping jacks every morning for 30 days, 70% effort level or above. Be honest with yourself. Do not do any more. Don't start going, oh, well, I'm going to go to the gym as well. Don't. If you are starting from here, don't add anything else. Just add this one thing. And if you already go to the gym, just add this one thing. Raise your base level. And I guarantee you at the end of 30 days, your life will be totally different. You will be thinking, feeling so differently. But I also know statistically 80% of you won't do it. And even if I charge you for that money, and this is that difference between there is so many things of free out there. But free, when it's free, some people don't feel that there's enough of a pull for them to do, oh, well, it didn't cost me anything or whatever. And even if I charge them, I still got to make you believe and teach you the sort of principles of even how to change a habit to make you get, because statistically 80% of you will not do it. 80% of you will not do 90 seconds. And that's what we're dealing with when we look at self-care and we look at making these changes, even raising your base level. You have to do some work around who you believe you are, what you believe you're doing, and the outcome you believe you're going to get. Otherwise, you repeat the same patterns.
So you know that my base level is, in terms of how I move forward through life, is I think that every action we take, everything we do, starts with how we feel about it. That's just it. So how do you change someone's mindset if they kind of they know, I know I need to, but I'm comfortable in my discomfort. I know where I am with this. I know that change is going to be difficult and it's going to be uncomfortable and I don't like it and I'm probably going to fail. And we get into this kind of downward spiral, and then we talk ourselves into a place of, do you know what? I'm all right where I am. And even though you don't necessarily like it where you are, I'm all right where I am. How do you encourage people to change that mindset and change their self-belief, and also their self-perception in terms of what they're capable of? Because most of the time we give up because we don't think we can do it.
Yeah. I mean, there are certain people that sit and say everything that you've just said there, and you're like that, do you know what? And they are all right. They are happy, right? And as much as they moan about it a lot, actually, we know that they're not willing to do anything to change it. And you can point out, you can say, hey, let's zoom into your future. Let's look in 3 years' time or 5 years' time, if you still did what you did today and you were on the same trajectory, and we map out what that life would look like, because it's quite obvious, we've got the data. We know what the extension of that data looks like. Even then, people don't see it. And it staggers me. So someone that we know, recently had a health issue and spent quite a few days in hospital. Now, love this person dearly. Great guy. Has a wonderful life. But it staggered me that the words that came out of his mouth saying, yeah, I need to make some lifestyle changes now. We wait for something dramatic to happen.
Well, actually,
before.
he said, I guess I need to make some lifestyle changes now.
That
was the shocking bit, because
it
wasn't like it should have been like, oh my God, I need to make some lifestyle changes. This thing has happened. And it was more like, oh, I need to make some lifestyle changes.
So with that in mind, and just to finish answering your question, so what I do is with people is we and then this is where the work really starts, is most people don't even know who they are themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. Because they're looking for this magic pill, this magic fix, or this thing. Even with what they wear, they go, oh, I feel better because of this thing. No, it's not because of this thing. It's an inside thing. We all got our favorite clothes and everything like that. But if we put how we think and feel, right, reliant on all these external stuff, we never get to the root of who we are. So we have to understand ourselves better. We have to ask ourselves better questions. And if through going through that process, we then start working on, who do you believe you are? Who do you want to be? And also, what are your values? Because there'll be many people that go, yeah, oh yeah, I'm healthy. I'm healthy. And their actions would question that statement. So most people are not congruent. They're not aligned with what they think they are and what they do. So we look at ways of, how can I make that how can I make you aware of it? And then talk about, if you stay on that trajectory, what would your life look like? And if we just even change that trajectory a little bit, what could your life look like? Because the thing is, what we know for sure is most people want the result. They just don't want the bit in the middle called the work. But when you say that the work's 90 seconds, when you keep it that simple, what if the answer to everything you're after was something that simple. Seriously, what if it was? Now I've been working on improving my base level for nearly 2 years. And all my coaching clients have been doing it for a year and a half, a year and a bit now. I know where some of these people are. And one particular person that springs to mind, I remember meeting him on a golf course. I hadn't seen him for a few months. He's 10 years younger than me. He looked 10 years older than me. And he runs a very big business, lots of stress. So we did some coaching, sorted some things out. And I got him, because he's healthy, I got him doing 7 minutes a day. And that's it. And again, totally different guy. This is the thing. It doesn't have to be massive. And by the way, you can just do 90 seconds and that can be your thing. You don't then have to go up to a minute and 2 minutes. You don't have to add stuff. But if where you are isn't working for you and you just adjust it slightly, what's that saying? If a plane took off from England and it was heading for New York, but it was like 2 degrees out, it would end up in Canada. It doesn't look any different for the first few, maybe even 1,000 miles. But then eventually you start seeing it's not going to make it. And that's the thing. We think that what we do isn't making a difference because we look short term. But actually, when we look long term, and if you don't believe that to be true, look at some of the habits that you have, good and bad. Look back roughly how long you've been doing them and tell me and yourself how they're working for you or not. And there's your evidence. So then imagine just raising your base level in a positive way on each of those things and then project forward and see where that could be.
Now, that's something that I want to pick up on with you, Nick, is that we spent a lot of time here talking about physical health. And whilst absolutely your physical health is so important because this is the shell that carries you around, carries your brain, carries your heart, carries your soul. So it's really important to look after this kind of physical casing that we've been given. But actually, it's everything that we've talked about here, even if physical health is something that you're not necessarily interested in, making these tiny little tweaks can be put into every single part of your life, whether it is how are you taking care of your relationship, your love life, your relationship with your partner, with your children, with your parents, with your friends, with your career, all of these things. Are you actually feeling fulfilled in what you do? Okay, well, what little steps can you take to feel more fulfilled in the place that you're in? Because sometimes people think that actually what I need to do is quit. I need to quit my job and I need to head off and do something totally different. I need to leave my partner and start a whole new life. I need to buy a Ferrari, typical midlife crisis type thing. But actually, many times you don't. Many times what you need to do is exactly what you said there. Your trajectory has just become by such a small degree off target, but you're getting further and further away. And that's what's making you feel disquiet in yourself. So how do you work with people to help them sort of keep on track with where they should be in terms of, because actually I'll reframe the word should, where they could be in terms of how they're living their full life, with their love life, their relationships, their sense of self, their career, all of it. What do you say to them?
Well, everything starts with how you feel about yourself. We all know that we as humans, we project a lot. If you find someone's behavior annoying, right, it says quite a lot more about you as well.
Is that why you get so cross with me for walking slowly?
For example, well, indeed. But take that point. So me and Andrea have this thing. I have a bit of a pace on when I walk, and Andrea walks in my language. I'm going to use my language like a nana. Okay. And I find that really, really frustrating. But there are times that I don't find it frustrating. There are times it just is what it is, and I accept it, right? And I'm calm with it. The times I find it frustrating, and by the way, I'm human, so there are moments when I allow that frustration to come out, and that's what we'll have a little squabble about. But it's more about what I'm feeling and thinking at the moment, rather than the fact that you're walking slower. So this, again, it goes back to what's going on inside me that's making me feel this way about you walking slowly. So what? So, and that's it. And we know this, but it really goes back to looking at ourselves, asking ourselves better questions. Because if we don't there's this wonderful quote: if you don't look after your body, where are you going to live?
I like that.
Right? If we are feeling a bit like my relationship's crap, this is crap, and all that, you can blame everyone else. You can blame environment, you can blame the other person. And yeah, that may be the case. It may not be helping, but you have to take full responsibility for who you are, who you're not, and your part in it. If you give that blame and responsibility to someone else, which a lot of us do, then it's not on us. I don't have to change anything. They're the idiot, not me. Right? But then if you spend your life, again, zoom out, you spend your life doing that, what trajectory are you on? You're on a path of unhappiness. You're going to fall out with your loved ones. You're going to fall out with your family. You're going to fall out with your friends, because that's who I am. And that's great. But how's it working for you? And it just, everything starts with us. But because we're so marketed to, we believe the answer is in another purchase, is in another glass of wine, in another holiday, or another thing. But actually, it's so basic and simple, but it starts with you.
Now, one of the things that I know we both share a view on is that there is no such thing as a quick fix. We're marketed to within an inch of our lives in terms of this is gonna, this
The
pill,
latest thing.
this latest thing, whether it is whatever, it's gonna change your life, and it's gone from in just an hour a day, 10 seconds, whatever it is. We're both a big believer that it's never one thing that is going to change your life. It's a mixture of all the things, but also that it's a long-term, life is a long-term thing. And hopefully it's a really long-term thing, because we'll live a long and healthy life. So I know that you're working on something at the moment that is really going to help people shift their attitudes in terms of stopping chasing this one quick fix that is going to fix all the issues that are I feel are going wrong in my life. What is that, and how can people get involved with that with you?
Well, it sort of then goes back to everything that I've spoken about here. So let's take the 90-second thing. And I'm saying do it for 30 days. And then people go, all right, I've done it for 30 days. That's it. No, that's not it. Right? Raising your base level, raising your minimum standard of what is acceptable for your health, physically, mentally, emotionally, for your body, in looking after yourself, is infinite until the day you die. All right? And we must remember that. Everyone looks for these little moments of time like that. But actually, if I want to live to 100 plus, but I also want to live well to 100 plus. And I know that I want to be playing golf when I'm 100. I want to be exercising when I'm 100. So if I raise my base level now, and let's just say my base level from when I started doing this to where I am now is, say, at 10, 15%. where do you think my trajectory is from where I started? But also, what do you think my chances are of getting to that point, fit and well, being able to bend down and put my shoes on and socks on, you know, being able to still move, not worried about falling over because I've kept some core stability. You know, we saw this guy, didn't we, on Instagram last week, this 94-year-old bodybuilder that's still competing. You know, we do have a bit of a prescribed thought as to what getting old looks like. And this goes back to, again, what do you believe to be true? Who do you believe you can be? I do not believe when I'm 100 that I'm not going to be able to do these stuff. Most people go to me, oh God, I don't want to be 90 and get old, because their version of old isn't doing great stuff. So you have to change that. And I'll tell you a story about that in a moment, actually, about someone I spoke to recently that's actually currently doing their 90 seconds and she's 70. But what I'm launching at the moment is based around the principles of just doing small things, but how they compound over time to give you a lifestyle that you never thought was possible from such small efforts. And it's based around the 100-hour rule. Now, the 100-hour rule came about when they were doing the 10,000-hour rule. And, you know, 10,000 hours, you're an expert. But they realized that if most people will not spend 10,000 hours on doing something to become an expert. But at 100 hours, you become in the top 5% of the population in what you do. So, for example, if you were to learn a new language, you will be in the top 5% of the population who just won't do what you've just got. Now, 100 hours, you think, well, that's a lot, but that's 100 hours over a year. That equates to 18 minutes a day. But what's beautiful about that 18 minutes a day is you can start at 90 seconds and build up. So I'm launching the 100 Club that is going to teach the principles of how to raise your base level, but more importantly, how to maintain raising your base level, how to become the person that you want to be with the smallest and most simplest amounts of changes in your life. So much so that I will do the first 100 days with you. So by the end of the year, or by the time you finish with me in 100 days, you don't even think about the changes that we've made. They become so habitual, they become so ingrained that the trajectory of your life from when you started to where you are will be the best thing you've ever done. And here's the thing as well. I'm going to start with my first group of 100 people. It's called the 100. There's 100 people. There's 100 hours. There's lots of science around it as to why this number works. But I also know so much that if you do everything that you say you're going to do and everything I ask you to do and you show up to everything, there's a doorbell. And if you show up to everything within that, Teddy, that's now Joe the Juice Deliveroo for our daughter.
That'll be Amy. Yeah.
So, yeah. Teddy, come here. Come here. Come here. It's not for you. Come here. Up. Come on. Come round. There you go. It's all live, folks. It's all live.
It is. It is what it is.
But it's going back to the 100 Club that I'm launching, which will happen in November. But you'll start hearing more and more about it shortly. Mm-hmm. I guarantee that if you do all the things that I put in front of you and you show up, if your life isn't any better, you can have a full refund. Because I know it works. And when you do it, and when you finish the 100 days, you will almost laugh at the simplicity of what you've taught, debunking everything that you thought you had to do, and your life will be so much better.
I'm excited for people to get involved with this. I am, because it works. I know it works. Where can people find you?
The best place to connect with me is on Instagram at Nick Feeney Coach. And what you'll also see, there'll be a waiting list coming up shortly. It'll be available when this goes out, and you can join the waiting list. Because there's only 100 spaces, I want to make sure I get the right 100 people in.
Sure.
And so there'll be a waiting list.
Brilliant. Well,
can I tell you one story?
Sure.
Going back to so I had a meetup with someone that we know, Natalie Costa, and her mum came along, and she wanted to meet me. She follows me on Facebook, and she said, I really love the stuff that you put out and everything like that. And we were having these conversations around self-care and health and getting older. And she's like, oh, no, I don't want to get old. I'm 70 now. I don't want to, live to 100. My mum and dad lived to 95 and their health wasn't great and all that. I said, okay. I said, so what if there was a different version of what 95 could look like? And we started talking some principles through, and I started taking her through some of the methods of the 100 Club. And I've got her doing 2 90-second exercises that, again, meeting her where she is. Right? I said, now knowing what you know and doing these things, if you could feel the way that you feel at 90, 95, would you like to live to that age? And the expression on her face, the hope that actually she's not coming to the end, but there's still more life, was just beautiful to watch. And now she's like a week and a bit into doing something, and I'm getting my little updates, and it's just magical to see because it's so simple.
No, it's lovely. And also the thing with all of this is meeting yourself where you are, and you're meeting yourself where you are no matter how old you are or
100%.
where you are or
100%.
what you are. None of that matters because you're starting at your starting point.
Yeah.
It's not like
There's
everyone's got to, there's no competition, and no one's got to all arrive in the same place and then everyone heads off and somebody's going to win. No, it's the total opposite of that. You meet yourself where you are, and that's where you begin. It's so simple. Nick, that is brilliant. I'm sure everyone will have enjoyed your examples and your pearls of wisdom and all that sort of stuff. And seeing as you are sitting downstairs in the kitchen, can you put the kettle on? And I will see you in 5 minutes.
I'll make some eggs and toast.
All right. Thanks for that. That was brilliant.
Thanks for having me.
I hope you've enjoyed today's midlife conversation. Make sure you like and subscribe this YouTube channel so you don't miss a single episode. And if you want to join in the conversation, head over to Facebook and check out Andrea McLean, This Girl is on Fire private Facebook group, where you can not only watch these videos, but join in the conversation as well. I'll see you next time.